So what do you think about the flag? It says Israel is over, right? What do you think about America?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And I would like to welcome you to Taco Tuesday.
You don't care about America?
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yummity yum. It's like a treat.
Yes, folks. Welcome to Taco Tuesday. Welcome to The Rundown, where we are having a good time. Just me and you, once again, talking about 2A news and conservative views. Once again, Craig DeLuz, your host today, coming at you from Sacramento, California, or shall we say California. If you listen to the California legislature, if you know anything about them, that's probably how you would wind up classifying them. But anyway, we're going to be talking today, and I look forward to having your comments. So if you're watching us live, that's 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Hey, give us a holler. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on Facebook, if you're watching us on Rumble, OpsLens, give us a holler. Check us out. Let us know what's up. If you got any interesting comments, we will make sure to get them on air. Also want to remind you, if you're not watching us live, or if you maybe can't watch us live because of, timing or something like that, just wanted you to know there's tons of different places where you can not just watch, but you can also listen. First of all, we are wherever you get your podcast. Just look for The Rundown, 2A News and Conservative Views. That would be on iHeartRadio. That would be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, which happens to be one of my favorites. Although I think I'm a little concerned because I think a couple of our episodes appear to have disappeared from Spotify. So I'm in the process of checking that out to find out what happened there. But what I like about Spotify is that you can both watch or you can listen. So if you're driving in the car, you can listen to the audio version, but you can also watch it if you want to as well. So anyway, however you are partaking, we don't care. As long as you are partaking and you are encouraging your friends to do the same, please make sure to do that. Please make sure to tune in. Help us, because the more people we have watching and listening, well, the better chance we have of getting some good sponsors. Those folks who pay the bills. In fact, let's start off by giving a quick shout out to those sponsors. We're going to start off with Hitman Industries. If you are looking for a rifle or pistol caliber barrel, they are the place to go. They've got either one, whichever one you are looking for. They've got Glock barrels. If you are looking to do maybe a new build or just maybe a rebuild your current firearm, they are the place to go to. Just look for them at hitmanindustries.net. That's hitmanindustries.net. Go there, check them out, spend some money with them. And by the way, in the event that you are a first responder and you've never purchased from them before, you can get a discount. So check them out today, Hitman Industries. Then you've got the California Republican Assembly, working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. So check them out at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. If you want to be a part of California's future today, join CRA. And then we've got Hog Holsters. That's HAWG Holsters, helping Americans wear guns. All you got to do is go to hogholster.com and get your holster today. Look, if you're looking for inside the waistband, outside the waistband, tactical, or just concealed carry, whatever you're looking for, they have got it for you. And if you use the discount code, The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, just like it is right up there, one word, you can get a discount on us. So check them out today, Hog Holsters. And then finally, the best in tactical gear you will find at uscombatgear.com. Fast shipping, excellent selection, great prices, veteran owned and operated. They have indoor gear, outdoor gear. They've got cold weather, warm weather. You name it, they got all things tactical but the gun. So check them out today, uscombatgear.com. All right, our first story today is one that it both amazes me and it upsets me And but it also shows what is great about this nation, and that is yesterday there were protests all across the country, and they were all basically pro-Hamas, and I don't say pro-Palestinian. They were pro-Hamas protests, and they were protesting against Israel. Now, mind you, they were protesting because they did not want Israel to retaliate for the 300 rockets that were shot at them by Iran. So the Islamic National Guard, or Islamic National Guard, Islamic Muslim Guard, anyway, basically the government of Iran shot 300 rockets at Israel. Now, 99% of those were shot down between the U.S., between the French, and between the Israelis. 99% of them were shot down, although half of them actually either landed in their own country or landed in another country on their way to Israel. But 99% of them failed. And so for some reason, because Israel was successful at, Israel and its allies were successful at defending it, that's supposed to be a victory, that all of a sudden it's like, well, there's no need to retaliate because, their attempt to kill you was not successful. And so they decided they were going to come out and they were going to protest and say, you don't go attacking them because, they're just, it would be bad if you dare to stand up and tell them, yeah, no, you don't get to attack somebody. You don't get to defend yourself, which is basically, in essence, what they would be doing. They would be, in fact, defending themselves. Instead, though, you have hundreds of anti-Israeli protesters, some chanting death to America while burning American flags. Now, this was just one. So you had them at the Brooklyn Bridge. They were also at the Golden Gate Bridge, blocking the freeway there. They were in Florida, although they moved them out of Florida real quick. They were all over the country. And they were all out there basically chanting death to America.
We're going to see what their reaction is to the American flag.
They're not allowed in, I'm sorry.
Keep it pushing, bozos.
Get the fuck out. Take your flag and go.
Take your house protected. When I think about the USA, it should burn. Death to America. Yo, don't touch me. What about the USA?
So what do you think about the American flag? What do you think about the American flag?
It should be burned.
It should be burned?
Yeah.
What do you think about the USA?
Burn it all down.
You have freedoms here, no?
Supposedly.
What do you think about Osama bin Laden and 9/11?
He did what he did because he had to do it.
So it was justified?
I said what I said.
What do you think about Osama bin Laden?
I love him. I love Osama. I want to suck his dick.
So what do you think about the flag? What about the flag? What do you think about America? Your sign says Israel is over, right? What do you think about America? Is America over?
Go! Go! Go!
You like all my flag? You like all my flag? You like all my flag? Just all my flag. Good for America. What do you think about America?
Nobody gives a fuck about Israel either.
What
Or
about
America.
You don't care about America?
Nobody gives a fuck about it.
You listen. I served 4 years in the Egyptian military, so if you're ready to do it, let's do it. Put it down and let's do it. Put it down and let's do it. You're gonna lay on the fucking...
Get out of here. Kill yourself. Kill yourself.
All right, so listen to him. He's basically telling people who support America to kill themselves. They're saying death to America. And they're saying they want to burn or they want to destroy or deface the American flag. Here's what's interesting about this. They're doing it in one of the few countries where you can actually get away with doing that. Think where it's not a crime against the government, where you can't go to jail, where you won't be beheaded, where you won't be stoned, where you won't be hung for defacing or defaming or speaking out against your government. Now, mind you, as you saw, several of these folks were not necessarily they were not necessarily what I would call Palestinian Muslims. They were not Muslims. They were not Iranians. They were literally just the radical left here in the United States. That's all they were. But they bought into this oppressor-oppressed narrative that is basically nothing more than neo-Marxism, where if you have power or you're winning, well, you must be the oppressor. And if you're not, well, then you must be the oppressed. If you're the ones that are the quote-unquote downtrodden, you must be the oppressed. And if you are the oppressed, there is nothing that you can do that is wrong or evil. And if you are the oppressor, there is nothing that you can do that is good. You are the oppressor and you need to die. That is their perspective. And what's hilarious about this is that a lot of these folks that you see here, if they were to live in the very Islamic state that they are defending, what do you think would happen to them? Right. Exactly. They would be killed. They would be stoned to death. If they did what they're doing now. In fact, here's a video of a young lady who, she's wondering, where are all these woke protesters? And understand, she is like, look, the oppressor in places like Iran, they are the government, the very people that these folks, that these Americans are defending. She has some interesting words for them.
Hi, Iranian woman here. It's become very apparent that you haven't been listening to anything that we've had to say for the past 2 years. But I was wondering if you could just lend me a few minutes of your time in this ungodly hour to hear us now. We've had to watch over the past 24 hours people clambering onto the internet to exclaim that Iran has the right to defend itself. In what capacity have you distorted this story to make the Islamic Republic the victim? That's I think what we're most curious about. When we were screaming for the past 2 years that they were lynching us, where were you? When we were screaming that they were killing Iranian women for not wearing a hijab, where were you? When they were lynching Iranian men from cranes for protesting, where were you? When we were explaining that this is a terrorist occupying force, where were you? But all of a sudden, everyone's graduated from Instagram School of Law to say that this is a violation of international law and Iran has the right to defend itself. First of all, you're not talking about Iran, you're talking about the Islamic Republic. What the Islamic Republic does is not a reflection of the Iranian people. We've been clear about what we want, which is peace. Second of all, you may have discovered the Middle East yesterday, but the Middle East didn't start existing yesterday. If you want to talk about an act of war, just a few days ago, a federal court determined that the attacks on Israeli embassies and Jewish centers in Argentina were conducted by the Islamic Republic and Hezbollah. That was in the 90s. That was in the 90s. Was that an act of war? How about the terror proxies that the Islamic Republic has created to foster regional instability? What did you think that they were there for? What did you think Hezbollah was there for? Hamas, Houthis, the militia groups in Iraq and Syria. Did you think that they were there to instigate a system of public schooling, education, to feed the poor, house the unhoused? What did you think that they were there for?
See, and she's kicking down some knowledge because she's trying to get people to stop and think and understand. You literally are defending the oppressors. It's like you just walked up, you saw a fight, and you're like, okay, I'm going to pick the side of the bully. And I'm going to defend the bully. Just because, well, you know, they're not as big as the other side. It's just, it is beyond ignorant. It is really beyond ignorant. I more wanted to focus on the very beginning of what she was talking about, how literally these kids, these woke kids, had these people out there protesting right now. the pro-Hamas, pro-Iran protesters who are chanting death to America and death to Israel, have no problem with this, with supporting Iran as they stone women to death, as they hang men who dare protest because they are stoning women to death. It is the height of ignorance. It is the very absolute height of ignorance that many of these young people are operating in. And it's no wonder, because, you know, they follow a mainstream media that is as ignorant. I don't want to say is ignorant, is that promotes ignorance, because I think in many cases they are very, very bad. They're bad. In many cases, I believe that they are in fact bad actors. But, you know, you want to know what happens, for example, to protesters here in the United States. Well, let me clarify. The folks on the left, they have a very different image of what should happen to protesters. And nothing could probably spell it out better than listening to some of the discussions during the, as the Supreme Court is hearing about the obstruction cases relating to January 6th. Now, to kind of round this out a little bit for you, right now, or at least this morning, SCOTUS was hearing oral arguments, relating to hundreds of cases relating to January 6th, where they were being charged with obstructing an official government proceeding, which was a felony. In many cases, they were actually threatening people with this. They were using this to threaten people in order to get them to accept plea bargains. So, of the 700 plus people who have actually been either convicted or have pled, many of them, this case was used in order to basically get them to agree to a plea bargain, or to agree, acknowledge, or plead guilty to committing a crime. Well, if this winds up getting thrown out by the Supreme Court, hundreds of convictions and plea bargains are going to wind up getting thrown out. And I think this little exchange here between the U.S. Solicitor General and Justice Gorsuch pretty much sums up, I think, where most of the justices are going to come out on this particular case. So let's listen to that. We'll talk about it on the flip side.
If I might. So what does that mean for the breadth of this statute? Would a sit-in that disrupts a trial or access to a federal courthouse qualify? Would a heckler in today's audience qualify, or at the State of the Union address? Would pulling a fire alarm before a vote qualify for 20 years in federal prison?
There are multiple elements of the statute that I think might not be satisfied by those hypotheticals, and it relates to the point I was going to make to the Chief Justice about the breadth of this statute. The kind of built-in limitations, or the things that I think would potentially suggest that many of those things wouldn't be something the government could charge or prove as 1512c2 beyond a reasonable doubt, would include the fact that the actus reus does require obstruction, which we understand to be a meaningful interference. So that means that if you have some minor disruption or delay or some minimal outburst, we don't think it falls within the actus reus to begin with.
My outbursts require the court to reconvene after the proceeding has been brought back into line, or the pulling of the fire alarm, the vote has to be rescheduled, or the protest outside of a courthouse makes it inaccessible for a period of time. Are those all federal felonies subject to 20 years in prison?
So with some of them, it would be necessary to show nexus. So with respect to the protest outside the courthouse, we'd have to show that, yes, they were aiming at the proceeding.
Yeah, they were trying to stop the proceeding.
Yes, and then we'd also have to be able to prove that they acted corruptly, and this sets a stringent mens rea. It's not even just the mere intent to obstruct. We have to show that also, but we have to show that they had corrupt intent in acting in that way.
We went around that tree yesterday.
I know. I heard the argument yesterday, but I guess what I would say is that to the extent that your hypotheticals are pressing on the idea of a peaceful protest, even one that's quite disruptive, it's not clear to me that the government would be able to show that each of those protesters had corrupt intent.
So mostly peaceful protests that actually obstructs and impedes an official proceeding for an indefinite period would not be covered?
Not necessarily. We would just have to have the evidence of intent, and that's a high bar.
All right. So in other words, and this is funny because The examples that he brought up, the examples that Gorsuch brought up were very, very specific. And the reason why is because he wanted to talk about, for example, sit-ins at a trial, right? There were numerous times where there were sit-ins at trials during Kavanaugh protests, when they were protesting Justice Kavanaugh being nominated to the Supreme Court. There's also the pulling of the fire alarm that was brought up. And that was specifically done with the idea of delaying a vote. Then you have hecklers in the crowd at various different meetings, or they're in Congress or state legislative meetings, hecklers who do so, once again, with the idea of delaying or not allowing business to go forward. Heck, in Tennessee, you had members of the legislature participating in it. So now you're telling me that they're now guilty of federal felonies, right? And then obviously you had, as he brought up, the mostly peaceful protests relating to BLM and George Floyd. And what's funny is that she keeps going back to, well, you'd have to prove. In most of these cases, they didn't prove that any of these folks had evil intent or had bad intent. A lot of the people who were charged literally were like, well, they were literally letting people into the Capitol. You had guards that were just ushering people in, that were just standing there as people walked through the Capitol. How can you then say that they were looking toward equal? They were trying to obstruct. And by the way, that's the other thing. They have to actually be in the process of obstructing, right? If I am just walking through the Capitol, I'm once again, I am not hunting anybody down. There's no evidence that I'm looking for anybody, or evidence that I am seeking to obstruct. Well, then, how can I be guilty of obstruction? See, what is happening here is that with the people who were there on January 6th, just because they were there, they are ascribing a motive. And their motive was evil. It was to obstruct. They had evil intent. Just because they were there. Now, those who seek to engage in some of the protests that you see, some of the whether it's the Palestinian, whether it's the I'm sorry, I keep saying the pro-Hamas, anti-Israel marches, the people, Representative Bowman, what he did, they clearly did not have evil intent, at least according to the Solicitor General. But this is why when we say there is a two-tier justice system when it comes to Republicans or conservatives and liberals, is because, once again, if you are doing something for an issue that is favorable to the left, then, well, you could not be guilty of a crime. But if you do something on an issue that takes a position separately or different from the left, well, then you are evil. And this is the sort of thing that's not supposed to take place in our justice system. Because it's like, once again, it's like saying, if you agree with me, then you're good. If you disagree with me, then you are evil. And your actions are evil, therefore they are criminal. And that's what they're saying. That's really what's going to come down to in this case. And what's going to wind up happening here is that because I really believe, based on that, I think you're going to see a number of these cases get thrown out. And when they get thrown out, by the way, one of those cases that's probably good, because you can't say that they incited people. You can't say that the president incited people to obstruct if they're not allowed to charge for obstruction. So all of a sudden now, the whole case that Jack Smith has against the president kind of goes kablooey. It really goes kablooey. And I think that's exactly what you're going to wind up seeing happen. But, we'll see. It'll all play itself out. But once again, and by the way, what they will say is, well, look, the evil, nasty, conservative, right-wing, out-of-control Supreme Court protected Donald Trump. When, in fact, what they did was go according to the law. Whenever the left, the liberals do something on the Supreme Court, they don't do it according to the law. Let's be clear. They do it to protect their political links, or they do it because they say, well, this is justice, even if it has nothing to do with the law. And if you want a better example, I can't think of a better example than Roe v. Wade, which legal experts who both support abortion and who oppose abortion said that, yeah, it wasn't really based in anything solidly constitutional. They pretty much made it up. Anyway, but talk about being evil. let's talk about people who get elected specifically on the promise that they will utilize their new power of government, their prosecutorial powers, to go after a particular individual because of differences in ideology. Well, now you've got Joy Reid of MSNBC, the one who, as much as she likes to make fun of Donald Trump, seems to enjoy wearing a Donald Trump wig. Here you have her actually celebrating that blacks who have been elected to office, Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, and Letitia James, all ran on the idea that they were going to get Donald Trump. And now they're getting Donald Trump, and it's okay because he's a racist, so, you know, it's all good. And she's just loving the irony of it.
Rikers is not.
And let me just bring Joy into that as well, because we've discussed this many times. A lot of the largest prison systems in America for incarceration are housing people who are awaiting trial, as Chris alluded to. Joy?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that Alvin Bragg has actually done that a lot of progressives have been happy about is a lot of those prisons are also housing, they're the new housing for the mentally ill. You know, rather than actually dealing with issues of mental illness in our cities, we're using prison and jail for that. But to the point that you all were just making, I mean, one of my favorite facts about one of Donald Trump's lawyers, Susan Michelis, is that one of her former clients was the notorious New York mobster Benny Eggs. And I will just assume and presume that old Benny Eggs was not attacking the judge. So Donald Trump is at this point outdoing actual mobsters in his attacks on the judge's families, the daughter, and he's doing it to the point that Lawrence made. He knows he will never spend a day, a second, a moment in prison. But for me, there is something wonderfully poetic about the fact that despite the fact that even if convicted, he's not going to go to prison, the first person to actually criminally prosecute Donald Trump is a black Harvard grad, the very kind of person that his former staff, the people who worked for him, Stephen Miller, et cetera, want to never be at Harvard Law School. But he was. And he came out and graduated, and he's prosecuting you, Donald. And a black woman is doing that same exact thing in Georgia. And a black woman forced you to pay a $175 million fine that's out now also in question because the people who put it up, that might not be legit. Donald Trump is being held to account by the very multicultural, multiracial democracy that he's trying to dismantle. And for me...
Okay, so let's hit that up. So, number one, he's not trying to dismantle anything. Keep in mind that Donald Trump was the president that provided permanent, ongoing funding for historically black colleges and universities. The first black president, Bill Clinton, didn't do it. Oh, I'm sorry. The first black president, Barack Obama, didn't do that. That was Donald Trump. It was Donald Trump who actually appointed more African Americans to significant positions than Barack Obama did. It was him who did that. It was him who passed criminal justice reform. It was him who signed into law the opportunity zones, which helped to invest in urban inner city communities and create jobs in the community. It was under Donald Trump who unemployment for African Americans hit record lows, who household incomes started to go up for the first time in 40 or 50 years. Including black families. You know, what's funny is that the sort of people that Donald Trump doesn't want, you're right, he doesn't want these Harvard grads in these positions. Because you know what? Because they're Marxists. A lot of these people who are graduating from Harvard Law School, Harvard Business School, have been educated into imbecility, right? They have been tagged and they have been brainwashed into full-blown neo-cultural Marxism. And the very fact that, once again, they ran on the idea that they're going to go after Donald Trump and they're going to prosecute him should have disqualified them from public office. Should have, at the very least, disqualified them from being able to go after him. But what also gets me is this, is that Fani Willis now is in a heap of trouble for what? Corruption, misusing federal grants, right? Sleeping with her employees. What's going on with Letitia James also is being investigated not by conservatives, but by the Justice Department. For what? For corruption, for misusing federal funds. And then you've got, by the way, then you've got all three of them, Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, and Letitia James, who are the chief law enforcement officers in some of the most crime-ridden, dangerous places in the entire country. I mean, think about this. Alvin Bragg, his justice system, right? Letitia James, her justice system, literally let a guy go without bail who punched an old woman in the face only so that he could go and punch a little 9-year-old girl in the face. They're the ones who had four or five guys attacked police officers and were released on bail and fled the state. Because they're spending all their time, energy, and effort going after Donald Trump. And by the way, just so you know who the primary victims of these crimes, of these crime sprees that are being pushed by these folks, by those three in particular? Let me clarify. By the George Soros-supported prosecutors across the country? Black folks. The very people that Joy Reid wants to sit up there and say, I'm just loving this. It is a blessing. It is I forgot what she got. Poetic, right? Yeah. Is it poetic? Is it poetic that young black men are being shot to death? That businesses are shutting down in predominantly black communities because of the rampant crime? That people now who live in these communities don't have any place to go. They don't have pharmacies. They're losing their pharmacies. They're losing their grocery stores. They're losing jobs because businesses are shutting down. Because these very people that you just praised aren't doing their jobs. I'm sorry. You my friend with your Donald Trump wig, you're either ignorant or you are evil. There really is no in between, because when I say ignorant, I'm not even saying that I'm saying that you have been thoroughly brainwashed, right? You must have. If you have not been thoroughly brainwashed, then you are evil, because you are perpetuating lies that are hurting the people that you go on air and you say you claim to care about. That makes you evil. So pick one, ignorant or evil. Ignorance can be cured with knowledge. Well, evil, only the Lord Jesus Christ can help cure you of that. So you need Jesus is I guess what I'm saying. Or maybe, I don't know, pick up a book. Anyway. All right, moving right along. Black voters are souring on Joe Biden. Yes, it is true. More and more black voters are deciding, and I've told you the stories about my experiences in the barbershop, and this is a barbershop that I've been going to for 20 plus years, and they have never been on the right side. They've never been conservative, but a bunch of the folks who were there are like, look, all I know is my pockets were fatter when Donald Trump was president. Now that they've seen what Joe Biden can do, they believe Joe Biden when Joe Biden said he was going to be the moderate president, that he was going to try and bring the country together. Well, Joe Biden lied. He lied flat out, because he has become one of the, if not the most divisive presidents of the United States. Someone who literally has called half the country a danger to democracy, who said that basically if you support anything that Donald Trump supports, then you are an enemy of this nation. That he's said this. These are his words, not mine. Well, the problem is that the American voter, including black voters, well, guess what? They're not stupid. They believe their lying eyes. And this is a story here. Once again, this is reported by Fox News. It says a Georgia news reporter observed that while voting for former President Donald Trump may be out of the question for some black voters, a Republican nominee may nonetheless benefit from the losing enthusiasm for President Biden and his ailing economy. Casey Quinlan, an economy reporter for State's Newsroom, wrote a piece for the Georgia Recorder, quote, "Black voters key to electing Biden in 2020. Money woes make some question their support in 2024. She shared multiple examples of black voters reflecting a larger trend of dissatisfaction with Biden's economic track record. Citing Cleveland resident Jennifer Gardner, Quinlan said, quote, black voters overwhelmingly supported President Joe Biden in 2020 and were key to his win, but as many like Gardner struggle to make ends meet now, there is some evidence that black voter enthusiasm for Biden may be slipping, and Trump is hoping to capitalize on that. And I think they make a very important point right here, and that is that if this is something that I said this literally 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, if black voters stay home, if black voters don't vote or vote Republican, Democrats lose. That's just it. There literally is, if they stay home, Democrats lose. If they show up in big numbers, Democrats win. Now, the interesting thing is what you're starting to see is when you're, and it's almost like, it's like you're starting to see, first of all, black men are voting for Donald or supporting Donald Trump at like 30%. So right now, polls are showing that 30% of black male voters are supporting Donald Trump. That is 3 times any vote total or vote count or anything close that any Republican has ever had. In fact, the next closest was 12%, and that was what Donald Trump got in 2016. So Donald Trump but he's number 1 and number 2 when it comes to that. Now, black female voters, they're still overwhelmed. I mean, they're still overwhelmingly supportive of Democrats, but they're less supportive of Joe Biden. And that's because in many cases they're head of household. So they're feeling the pinch under Joe Biden, and they're not liking it. They are not liking it at all. But understand that everything that the Democratic Party is doing, because there really is, by the way, there is only really one constituency that is overwhelmingly, like, no matter what you say or do, going for Joe Biden. One, overall, black people overall, probably you're looking at about, anyway, but overall black folks, but then single women. That's because much of the messaging that's coming out of the Democratic Party, the push talking about abortion, all of that, their whole thing is they realize they cannot afford to lose single women, because even married women are splitting 50-50 between Trump and Joe Biden. But they realize that they cannot afford to lose the black vote. But guess what? They are losing black men. They're losing black men because black men are starting to see that they've woken up, they've taken the red pill, and they're at the very least recognizing that Joe Biden has not been good for America. We were headed in a very positive direction economically, our relationships with foreign nations. You look at the Abraham Accords. I mean, literally, the fact that we had multiple nations actually declare that they were, the support for Israel, acknowledge Israel's right to exist. Nobody had done that before. Nobody. He got North Korea and South Korea to sit down with one another. He got folks at NATO to finally start kicking in and paying their bills. No other president had done that. No other. I mean, in every area we were doing better, except, of course, he had mean tweets. So because he had mean tweets, he obviously, in many people's eyes, could not continue to be president. And I think what people realized was, because I think some people just thought, well, those things just happened. Well, you saw what happened when he was no longer president and you let Joe Biden take over, and you saw that, no, those things don't just happen. They require some work. And if you don't actually stand up and fight for it, it's not going to, you're going to lose those things that Donald Trump helped to put in place. And we lost them. And guess what? Folks want them back. Anyway, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code, The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get your hog holster today. We talked earlier in the week about the NPR journalist who basically exposed, or not, last week we talked about it, who came out and exposed the liberal bias there at NPR, the government-funded news agency. Well, he has since been suspended, which, by the way, leads us to says journalist at NPR suspended, leading to shocking discovery that there was a journalist at NPR. What do you know? And then we were talking a little bit about the trial today of Donald Trump. It wasn't a trial of Donald Trump. It was a January 6th, which, by the way, January 6th defendants, which, by the way, he happens to be one. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens with that case. But according to the many cases, it says judge warns Trump criminal trial may last until say November 6th. Yeah, that would be the day after Election Day. Anyway, funny stuff. Both of those, by the way, were brought to you by the Babylon Bee. Check them out today. Phenomenal, fun news. And with that, we're going to be done, except, we need to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start off with Hitman Industries. You'll find them at hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly. Visit them at cragop.org. Then we've got Hog Holsters. You'll find their home at hogholsters.com, HAWGholsters.com. And then finally, the best in tactical gear, uscombatgear.com. And with that, we're going to call it a day. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow on Hump Day. Till then, y'all take care. Have fun. Stay out of trouble.